But truly, what that video means is there's always something to really overlook. And I look at the inconveniences that I caused in my addiction, and I contribute how I just can't get flexible in my recovery. So there's a lot of movement going on in here. So I'm going to ask that you respect when I'm teaching, so we're not moving again. If I had a bag of dope up here, you'd sit real still. And I had that bag of dope ready for you if you were just so good and you sat so still. If I had a $100 bill so you could go to the casino tonight, your game would be on. You wouldn't move 1 inch. I would ask you to, maybe one day I'll just pick one of you to come teach for 45 minutes and see what it's like with a bunch of people moving around. You know what I'm saying? You know, when the dope man said, don't leave that corner, I'll be there in 10 minutes, and I had to take a leak, pardon my language, I would have peed my pants just to wait for that dope. See, it's important that you learn how to respect people. I do my best to give you respect. And preparation is everything. That's why we talked about, too, with this. And I'm not trying to be some jerk. You know my heart. I'm a sensitive person. But if I don't teach you how to live, because somebody had to teach me how to live, you're not going to know how to live. And you're going to be doing whatever you want, whenever you want, to whoever you want. And that's just not how it works. It's not how the world works. How it works says that we need to learn rigorous honesty. And it says that we need to be honest with ourselves. And, you know, I got a lot going on right now, and they're all good things. So I can't afford to have somebody that doesn't know how to respect me affect me. Because you might not be around me next week, but there's thousands of people that are yet to come, and if I let you affect me, which will affect thousands of people that aren't even here yet, quite frankly, you ain't worth it. I mean, can I talk like a man? Can I be real here? I mean, so it's important. God has trained me. I'm an addict. I'm a chronic addict, crack addict, heroin addict, any kind of addict. I was a garbage can junkie. Whatever I could digest that would allow me to get away from myself as I blamed other people. So it's very important to me, and the key is, too, Bobby pulled me aside one time after the service. I love Bobby dearly, and he's a man of much respect and much gratitude. And he goes, why do you get so direct with everybody? You know, and this was several months. I said, well, you know, it's kind of like anything. If this doesn't apply to you, who cares? Why take offense to it? If somebody said, who stole my wallet, and you know you didn't, why would you freak out? So if you're not one of the ones being disrespectful, why get offended? You know? But at the end of the day, we're all able to be who we used to be. And we were disrespectful people. Extremely disrespectful people. Disrespectful to ourselves, disrespectful to our family, disrespectful to everybody. And it all stemmed from our lack of respect for ourselves. If you've been a liar, like I was and all of you were, you come to find if you can lie to yourself, you will have no problem lying to other people. And if you know how addiction works, that addiction is a lie. It's one big lie. I had dinner last night with a new friend of mine, and they have recovery homes too, and you know, it's a lot of work. I am so grateful for this community because the majority of people here really are grateful that they are here. Have you ever met with a person that starts to disconnect themselves from you and then blames you for being disconnected? I mean, I'm in my life, in my professional life, in my ministry life, in my life as a pastor, I'm continuously put in no-win situations. Do I look like I'm losing? So how do you win when you're in a no-win? Well, that's with God. That's with God. And I think, too, that, like I asked you guys last week, there's a lot going on at stake that could affect tens of thousands of lives right now. We've got to be pushing in and pressing in. And that's why it was so important. I think it was Megan put a post on Facebook that says, how do I get a copy of that teaching last week? I'd like to take more notes. That's a hungry person. But I used to be the guy that sat in the sanctuary because I blamed it on my ADD. I'm like, well, I can't pay attention. I can't understand what he's saying. Well, then I asked God to help me pay attention. Now, don't you think that God would help you pay attention to his word? So it comes down to it's a choice. Do you even want to pay attention? Or are you so broke that you can't even pay attention? Being broke just does not equate to finances. But I had to get spiritually, mentally, emotionally broke in order to pay attention. So don't so much put so much emphasis on what you don't have. Maybe start to work with what you do have, and God will give you more, which is biblical. Secondly, if you are complaining about what you do have, God will never give you more to complain about. So he's not going to give you anything else. I love it. As I said, I was talking to Teresa. I mean, you could see the fire of gratitude in her eyes. She stopped me in my tracks before the meeting night and expressed all the stuff since she's been part of this community that she's been freed of and the restoration that has happened in her marriage. I mean, that's a conviction, knowing what truly has taken place here. And you got to understand it. Lord, I thank you for another day above ground and out of prison. Lord, I thank you for the people that are serious, Lord, that motivate me, that this is worth it. Lord, for those who are playing games, I thank you for them too. Because by the grace of God, there go I. I thank you that I'm not that person anymore. And I'm certainly not judging those who are that person. Lord, I pray that they come to the end of themselves. And I pray that there's not too many consequences affiliated with the fall. But if the consequences need to be there while falling, may those consequences be so deep that they have nowhere to turn but to you. Thank you for bringing me through that process myself, because I didn't have nothing left, but I come to find that I had everything left, and that everything I had left was a relationship with you. Thank you for allowing me to lose everything. Lord, I ask that you speak through me tonight like never before. Do it in a quick, clear, concise manner that it will at least change one person under the sound of my voice. And Lord, I hope it's me that gets changed. Please change and transform me. In your name we pray, amen. So I thought to myself, I got a lot of feedback last week about the steps. So last night I was in my office, and I just started writing. And maybe these steps that I'm going to go through, you are working. Maybe these steps you will relate to more than you can relate. I had a guy last week say, I don't agree with the 12 steps. I said, well, what don't you agree with about it? Well, it's just like, why do we have to fight everything that's good? Why do we accept the bad and fight the good? But as I began to come up with these steps, that they made sense, the steps of addiction. You admitted that your addiction made you powerful. Now, who experienced a personality change when they drank alcohol? I mean, one thing I will tell you, those of you who do relapse, and I'm one of those people, you can, here's a person in their recovery, they come into this meeting like this. Don't look anybody in the eye and sit down. But here's them under the influence, throwing hugs out. Hey, how you doing? You don't think we notice a character change? Don't say a word until you get a little nip on, and then you're Mr. Busybody. So the first step to your addiction is you admitted that your addiction made you powerful. It transformed you into Superman. Once shy, now bold. Once scared, no fear. And now it says, and you could manage your life. Step 2, you came to believe that your addiction was a way of escaping. You came to believe that your addiction, the drug, the gambling, the alcohol, would give you relief from the insanity of your mind. You failed to realize, we failed to realize that it just increased the insanity. It says, you came to believe that your addiction was a way of escaping and it kept you sane. Step 3, you made a decision to turn your will and your life over to the care of your addiction. I totally surrendered my life to crack cocaine. But now I won't do it for God. Then it says, even though you didn't understand it, you turned your life over to your addiction even though you didn't understand it. Now, your addiction suggested for you to do things, and you had no problem doing it, but if this program suggests for you to do things, you have a problem with it. Your addiction suggests, oh, go steal that money for get some more dope. Okay, I'll do it. But God says go get a sponsor, and you say no way. See, so we had no problem. I'm here to tell you tonight that you can work the steps. You've done it. You just have worked the wrong ones. So I had no problem turning my life over to the care of my addiction, even though I didn't understand it. I didn't understand that that first line of cocaine would cost me my company, my children, my bank accounts, my freedom. I didn't understand any of that, but I did it anyway. So maybe you don't understand that God will really do what God will really do. I don't understand how he was going to do it. Well, that's okay. Do it anyway. Because you did it anyway in your addiction. Step 4, weren't willing to look at anything about yourself, but instead blamed others. Step 5, admitted to no one what you were really up to. How many of you are working that step right now? A lot of you. Who really knows what you're up to? You're working that step right now. It says, now step 6, became entirely ready to compromise your character. What were you willing to compromise because of your addiction? Your integrity, your character. It says, became entirely ready to compromise your character to stay in your addiction. Crossed all moral lines. You worked step 6? Whatever it took to do one more. Step 7, added to your shortcomings, which added to your guilt. Why do we stay high? Because we're guilty that we got high and relapsed, and we medicate the guilt by continuing to get high. Now, added to your shortcomings, how many bad habits did you pick up in your relapse? Why, before I relapsed, I was just a liar. Now I'm a liar and a thief. Added to your shortcomings. See, step 7 in your addiction. Step 8, we're unable to acknowledge any of the people that you had harmed. Now, understand, in the real steps of AA, the word is we. In these steps, it's you. Because it's all about you. It's all about you. It was all about me. When I'm saying this, I'm talking about me too. But we were unable to acknowledge any of the people we had harmed. Step 9, harm those people whenever possible in order to stay in our addiction. Whoever was in your path of destruction, children, companies, people you never met, if they got in your way, you didn't care about harming them. Step 9, in your addiction. Step 10, never looked at your side of the street, wronged many people, and never admitted it. Step 11, sought to improve on ways to stay in your addiction. Think about how creative you used to have to be to get one more. Broke, homeless, still got high that day. Woke up with nothing, 6 dope dealers cut you off, but you found the 7th one that would give you a chance. Improving on ways to stay in your addiction. Check out what it says here. I mean, it's so on point. Praying only when you're in trouble. Real step 11 says praying only for the knowledge of his will, but praying only when you're in trouble And when you got out of it, went back to your addiction. Step 11. Step 11. Step 12. Having lost everything as a result of your addiction, you realized you needed help and answered the call that God has on your life, or you die. A lot of you are working these steps right now. I've worked these steps. See, we got to understand in 1 Peter 2:9, God did you feel out of place in your life of addiction? Check out what the Bible says. But you are not like that. Now, I was the type of guy that go around some crazy stuff, violence, guns, street life stuff, right? And I'd be involved with that life, and I'm like, this isn't me. This doesn't really feel right. I shouldn't really be around these people. Not judging them, because I was one of them. But I don't know how many of you went over to that life, like Deb had said, waking up having to have a drink every day, and before she picked up that drink, says, what am I doing? See, how many of you said, this isn't me? See, what it's saying here is the reason why it didn't feel right is because it wasn't right, but more importantly is because God had something else for you. And that's what it says here. But you are not like that. You are a chosen people. You are a royal priest, a holy nation, God's only possession. As a result, show others the goodness of God, for he called you out of the darkness. That call that God has on your life when you're sitting in the midst of your addiction and you're saying to yourself, this is not me. What am I doing here? That call that God had before you were born is now getting your attention, and it's calling you out of the darkness of addiction. And once you get out of the darkness of addiction, God will call out what he deposited in you before you were born. I know some of you can't even digest what I'm teaching here. But it says, as a result, you can show others the goodness of God. Check this out. Through your life, people will see what you used to be. They see it. I mean, wait, let you just wait. People like come and say, just Jeff Hill. Jeff Hill, the crack addict's a pastor? Jeff Hill, the guy who did this, is a... See, it says it right here. As a result, you can show it. So, I mean, when people see, they knew you when you were living in the darkness, and then they see you living in the light of your sobriety, they're going to say, God is real. God is real. And what it's saying here is so true, for he called you out of darkness. Acts 15:17. You were able to hear his voice because you were his. Now, when you were in that place that you didn't feel that you really should be, there was something that spoke to you. I don't care if you were a believer or not. There was something that spoke to you, that said to you, that called out to you, there is a better way to live. This is not you. Check it out. It's biblical here. It says, so that the rest of humanity may seek the Lord. Now, what if I wouldn't have listened to that voice all those years ago? You would have never heard this message tonight. This program would have never been birthed. So who will suffer because you don't answer the call? I'll get to that in a minute. But it says, all those who I've called to be mine. So, I mean, I look at my life when I was in those places that I shouldn't have been, and I knew it, and I knew I shouldn't have been doing what I was doing, and that small voice inside said, come out of the darkness. And I couldn't do it. I was stuck. But finally I did it. I don't think any of you got a lightning bolt down from heaven and climbed up the lightning bolt out of the dope house. No, you had to walk out. You had to walk out of the casino. You had to walk out of the bar. You had to walk out of urgent care. You had to walk out of your mess so you could have a message. It's on you. It's on me. But how many people would have suffered if I wouldn't have walked out? If I wouldn't have listened to that voice? And that's God calling all of us. He says, and those called to me mine. There's a reason why you're not dead. There's a reason why you can still think in the dope and the alcohol and you did not get killed. I did so much acid doping, I shouldn't even have brain cells left. There's a reason why he restored my mind. So I can teach people. You too.
Amen. That's right.
Why aren't you dead? Why are you doing a life sentence in prison? All of us should be doing something other than sitting here. We shouldn't be here. Are you even grateful that you're here? I mean, how could a guy or a gal like me or you even have the audacity to not be grateful to be sitting here tonight? Being where you've been, being where I've been, being in tubs and hotel rooms with ice cubes, trying to get my blood flowing again because the dope was running through my veins and they were calling 911. But yet I'm still here. How are you here? And what are you doing because you're here? Murmuring and complaining? Then you'll go back into the darkness and maybe you'll never hear that call again. I don't want to take that risk. And it says it right now in Jeremiah 1:5. You were called because God has something for you. Now, when God called me out of the darkness, I didn't know that he had Serenity Village for me. I didn't know that he didn't say, Jeff, in 2012, you'll start your own church, which you'll pastor. No, that ain't how it works. In 2015, you'll have 85 beds with people staying in them that should be dead, but because they're not dead, I called them out of the darkness to help other people. No, he said, get to a meeting. Get a sponsor, and let me see if I can trust you with those two things. So it says, before I shaped you, I knew all about you, it says in Jeremiah 1:5, right? So, I mean, God knows you made all those mistakes, and he still called you. Quite frankly, before you made them, he knew you were going to make them. There's nothing that can separate you from the love that he has for you. There's nothing. There's nothing. Before you saw the light of day, as I was studying for this, it reminded me, and I know the gamblers can for surely relate to this. I mean, I was out all night for weeks at a time, not sleeping in my addiction. But I used to hate, that light of day stood out to me. I used to hate driving down the highway in rush hour traffic up for 2 weeks looking at other people going to work and wishing I could be one of them. But I was stuck. So now that I am one of them, why am I complaining? I got what I wished for. But don't wish to be normal. You don't want to be. Why would you want to be normal? God don't call people who are normal. God calls total whack jobs. Because when he gets a hold of a whack job, the naysayer will say, there has to be a God. I'm telling you, that's how he rolls. That's how God rolls. I mean, I got guys who are living here. I can't handle living with people. Wait till you go to prison, because that's where you're heading next. You'll wish you were back here. I can't be around all these people. Maybe we don't want to be around you, but we are anyway. I can't work under these conditions. Dude, 6 months ago, you begged me for a job. I mean, somebody's got to check you before you get checked. Let a person check you before God has to check you. When God checks you, you will be in the penalty box. Because he loves you. Because he loves you. And it's so important. It says, God has holy plans for you. Well, I didn't buy off on that right away. How could God have holy plans for me? Nothing about my plans were holy. But that answered the question right there. Nothing about my plans were holy. But everything about his plans for me were. Romans 8:28. Everything had to happen for this to happen. And it says, we know that God causes everything to work together for the good for those who love God. Well, I didn't love God when I got here. I didn't love myself, and I hated you. Quite frankly, if I was honest with myself, I hated me too. It's about how How It Works says, rigorous honesty. I mean, have you ever met a person that pretends that they like themselves? It's so obvious that you hate yourself. And quite frankly, I was one of those people, and that's why I continued to punish myself. And it's hard to watch somebody punish themselves. Oh, I mean, that's what they said to me years ago, and some of you just recently experienced this. You're walking with me. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Way too many I's in your statement. But you think so lowly of yourself, you put yourself back in prison. That's what they said. They said to me, like, "But you must not think very highly of yourself." I said, "Well, I don't have a problem with that. What are you talking about?" And it stung. It was the truth. Well, why do you put yourself back in jail? If you thought that highly of yourself, you wouldn't do that to yourself. Why do you put yourself back on the streets? If you really liked yourself, why would you do that to yourself? And it's a self-loathing, self-hatred that we all have. And it says God causes everything to work together for good for those who love God. So I needed to learn how to love God. But the things weren't going to work together for the good until I learned how to love God. Now it says, are called according to His purpose. So now it's not about your agenda. It's about God's agenda for your life. Now it says, in Galatians 5, 9, 10, maybe you had to get off track to get on the right track. Maybe that was part of the plan, all these relapses. If you are a chronic relapser like me and you're still breathing, maybe that really had to happen. Because it says it right here. You were running superbly. Well, yeah, we're all strong starters. That's why I love only having new guys in my group on Tuesday nights, because they're grateful for 30 days. Very few people remain grateful. And the ones that do, stay sober. But it says you were running superbly. What cut in on you from deflecting you from the true course of obedience? And you know what, guys? It's usually the good things that cut in us. Like time with family cuts in on us. Can't go to meetings. My kids need me. That's not a bad thing, but if it cuts in on you, you're going to get high. I got to go spend time with my wife now. Well, that's true. I spend a lot of time. Well, I really don't. But we know we're here to serve the Lord. Our relationship is extremely abundant. But all of a sudden, the one thing I would tell you about this, and this is why you need a mentor to coach you in this. How is it that you didn't care at all about any of these things in your addiction, but now that you're sober, you have all these responsibilities? You know what I tell guys that get out of prison, that get 2 phone calls a week, depending on what institution? I said, maybe just call your family twice a week initially, just like when you were in prison. Maybe ease back into this. Why would I want to do? They don't understand why that would be. Because in the natural mind, like, well, why would I not? But you know what? She wants to go on a date on Wednesday night. I said, no, I'm going to Bishop Earl's. And she's mature enough to know that's how it's got to be. Because if it ain't like that, then she started going to Bishop Earl's. But if it ain't like that, there's going to be no marriage. If you think that you're an exception to this rule, you're not. And it says, what cut in on you? It says, this detour does not come from the one who called you into the race in the first place. So these detours we go on in a recovery aren't coming from God. I don't care if they look good, they're not good. It says in 1 Peter 5:10, maybe you had to suffer to experience His strength. In His kindness, God called you. Now, you didn't get here because you were kind. I didn't get here because I was a kind person. I got called because God is kind. He called me in spite of me. And that's what it's saying here. In God's kindness to share in His eternal glory. Oh, God, you mean that all that damage and lying and dope I did and left my family for crack, that means that you still will let me experience your eternal glory? That don't even make sense. But it's true. It's true. And it says, so after you've suffered for a little while, why is it that we can suffer all day, every day in our addiction, but we don't want to suffer for nothing in our recovery? It says, he will restore, support, and strengthen you. This is what will happen to you where you've been called. And he will place you on a firm foundation. God calls you, then he places you, but some of you leave where he's placed you. God doesn't make mistakes, and you're not one of them. 2 Timothy 1:9, maybe you needed to be unworthy to find your worth. For God saved us. What did God save you from? Only you know truly what it was. The word addiction is too broad. What he saved you and me from was hell. Hell on earth due to our addiction. Does anybody really know how ugly it really was other than you, the person that lived it? When's the last time you asked, thank God, from what he saved you from? I mean, and it says, and called us to live a holy life. Well, that was hard for me. He did this not because we deserved it. You didn't get a seat in this sanctuary because you deserved it. You and I should be sitting in the penitentiary. That's what we deserved. For those of you who can't relate with those of us who've been incarcerated, let me tell you, you just didn't get caught. Not because you were that slick. These dime bag dope fiends that think they're drug kings are a joke. You hear me say it all the time. A drug addict will either fantasize or minimize. You never get the truth from them. You never get the truth. And it's the truth that will set us free. And it says that I know what God saved me from. I know I didn't deserve it. Because his plan, again, his plan, not mine, from the beginning of time. So if you go against God's plan, he'll stop your plans. How many of you have been here and came back? Raise your hands. God stopped your plan. He wants you here. That doesn't mean you have to live here forever. What's so bad about living here? Did you forget where you used to live? I mean, somebody's got to check you. It says now requirements to answer the call. 2 Chronicles, it says, 7:14, God and recovery must remain your first priority. Then it says, then if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves. Well, it's easy to give God everything when you got nothing. But what about when you start to get stuff back because of God? Will you give it to him? You know, to me, it just blows my mind. It says, pray and seek his face. Well, I only did that in the back seat of the cop car. When's the last time you prayed and sought God's face? Or are you just doing so good now you don't have to do that? See, that's called pride. It says, and turn from your wicked ways. Wicked ways are not just in addiction. I see a lot of people living wicked ways in recovery. I will hear from heaven, the Bible says, and forgive them their sins and restore their land. Let me tell you something. If you answer the call and stay where God has placed you, he'll give you land that you didn't even know you had. But so many of us can only see what is right in front of us. And it's so important. Now it says in 1 Corinthians 7:17, you must stay connected to where God called you. Each one of you should continue to live in whatever situation the Lord has placed you. This is not transitional living. You should never transition out of this community. Ask the ones that have. And I don't say that because I want you around here, trust me. And you know my heart, I love you. And don't take that out of context, you know I love you. But it's more about what's best for you. So, God calls you somewhere. How many people have lived here and now are still connected here? Raise your hands. Every one of these people, the majority of them, are living the abundant life. Because it's one thing when you have to do something. See, quit looking at like I have to go to my meetings. Do you fail to remember that Angela doesn't get to be here tonight? She would give anything to get to go to this meeting tonight. So this isn't about transition. The Bible says, stay where God has placed you and remain as you were, where you were when you were first called. This says this is the rule for the churches. See, I was a runner. God knew it. That's why he made me found this place. I would have been gone. I commend each and every one of you. Would I really be here if I didn't have all this other stuff connected to being here? Just to be honest with you, knowing what I used to be like, probably not. I would have ran by now to bigger and better things and ended up in prison for life. So God knew with how sick I was that he says, okay, I'm going to pull you out of darkness. I've called you by name. I'm going to extract what I deposited in you before you were born. You didn't even know it was in you. If you would have known it was in you, you would have never done what you did. But because it was in you, and I am God, and I am not judging you, and I love you through your pain, I'm going to extract from what I deposited in you, and you will start this program called Serenity Village, and then you will start a church. Then you will go global just to help people just like you. But it took faith to do it. Because none of this was there wasn't, 2008 would it look like that. No, none of this was mapped out. It takes people of character to walk by faith and not by sight. Call things that are not as they are. I already know God's got our building. I already know it. Start speaking into existence the things that God has for you. Don't get caught up with a girlfriend when God's got a wife for you. You're messing around with Susie Q and your wife walks by and she sees that you're already occupied. She'll walk right on by. A week from later, you ain't even with Susie Q. You got to know the principles of God. The Bible says that when you find a wife, you find a good thing. See, when you find a wife, you find a probation officer and a police officer and somebody that will give you UAs and call you when she doesn't hear from you over an hour at a time. That's a good thing for a drunkie like me. That's a good thing. It's a real good thing. So, I mean, it says it right here. Now, check this out. So, I mean, it just spells it out for us. The facts about answering your call. Romans 11:29. God hasn't changed his mind about you. For the gifts, like I said, what he deposited in you before you were born, if you knew it was in there, you wouldn't have done what you've done, nor would have I. But once you answer the call, come out of the darkness and listen to his voice and begin to work life like he wants it to be worked, which really isn't even work. You know what work was? Work was continuing to get high. That was a lot of work. Continuing to lie. Continuing to live a facade. So it says, for God's gifts and his call are never withdrawn. That means after 11 treatments that I went through, God still had a plan for me. But you know what will happen with some of us? We'll die before we find out what he deposited in us. What a shame it would be, even if you went to heaven and it was revealed to you, this is what I had for you on earth, and you didn't do it. You didn't do it. And it's so important that we guys, 2 Peter 1:3, God will give you everything that you need. When I started Serenity Village, I had nothing. I couldn't even put gas in my car. Well, God, get this house. There's 6 men coming. They'll be living here. Well, where are we going to get the furniture? I have no idea. They won't even let me open a bank account, for God's sakes. How are we going to furnish this house? I said, okay, God, you said in 2 Peter 1:3 that you will give us everything we need. Now we're not going to garage sales. We're going to Best Buy to buy flat screen. We don't go to garage sales. We go to home furniture so you can live good. But you're still living bad. Well, at the dope house, I had to sit on the floor. I'm not too accustomed to this cushion. turn down the air conditioner. There was no air conditioner in the dope house. I'm used to walking. I mean, geez, whatever, man. It drives me nuts. I can't be around it. But God is who he says he is. He gave us everything we needed, Mike. We didn't have anything, did we? We had nothing. And he began to give us everything we need. It says, we have received all this by coming to know him. I've come to know him over these years. The one who called us to himself, he called me to him. Means of his marvelous glory and excellent. He didn't call me because I was marvelous or excellent. He called me because he was marvelous and excellent. Acts 2:39, if you don't answer, many people will suffer with you. It says this promise is for you and for your children. If you don't answer this call, your children are going to suffer, even your unborn children. There are too many children raising children now. 25-year-old children raising children. Still addicted. Still depressed. Still anxious and full of unforgiveness. Raising children, for God's sakes. Stop the madness. Get free so your kids can get free. What's wrong, Dad? What's wrong, Dad? Nothing. Why don't you spend some time? Shut the door because I want to get high. What kind of father was I? Picking up the kids with baby seats, selling crack cocaine out of the window. I should have never been a father. Shame on me. But he called me anyway. And today, my 22-year-old is sober. She leads missions trips. My 18-year-old's going to Haiti with the girls on January. And my 17-year-old leads Bible camp counseling. That's what God can do. Well, otherwise I could have sat there, oh, I'm such a terrible dad. I can't believe I did all that stuff. Well, you know what? I did it, but I'm not it. I'm a new creation. The old is gone and the new has come. When he begins something in me, he promises to complete it. If he did it for me, he can do it for you. Because God does not play favorites. What he did for any of the ones that he's doing for, he will do it for you, but you will not let him. Just let him. It says in 1 Corinthians 7:2, you still have to be a slave to remain free. And remember, you were a slave. I think some of us forget that. We were a slave to our addiction when the Lord called you. And now you are free in the Lord. And if you were free, see, you made yourself available on your darkest day to listen to that still small voice and to pull yourself out of that pit that you knew you shouldn't have been in to begin with. And you realize that this isn't for me. But you can't just go from this isn't for me. It's not worth it unless you find out what is for you. You've got to be delivered from to something. And it says, the Lord called you, so I'm a slave. Either way, you're going to be a slave. You're going to be a slave to your addiction, or you're going to be a slave to Christ. I'm a slave. I'm available to him 24/7, just like I was to my crack. I will never be too tired to help somebody. And I'm grateful somebody wasn't too tired to help me back in the day. Have you helped people as much as you've been helped? See, I'm going to teach this week about commitment in church. It isn't a relationship if you don't give back more than what you got. What have you given to this program? What have you given to my wife and I? Are you just taking up space? It is no relationship. You don't have any relationship with us unless you give something back. You got to creak your wallet open and just put $1 in the basket. Are you kidding me? Is that all my 8 to 10 hours worth of teaching is? $1? It don't go to me anyway. I pay about $35,000 a year to do this. You peeled off those Franklins for the dope man. We don't have a relationship unless there's reciprocity on this thing here. I can't even say the word. What is it, babe? See, I'm not smart, but I'm chosen. But you come in and you take. You fail to recognize you ain't getting nothing because you ain't giving nothing back. I know I'm coming hard tonight. I'm coming real hard. I don't have time anymore to play games. I don't have time. And it says it right here in 1 Corinthians as I close. Don't ever forget who you were when you called. Let me remind you something, Serenity Village people. We didn't call you. You called us. And we answered the call, and we treated you like the champion that you are. But slowly, but surely, I mean, now Doug and I, when we roll together during the day for business, when somebody says, I'm so grateful, and then they're sleeping in here tonight. Can you, I'm not looking at you right now, but I'm looking at you all night, sleeping. I'm so grateful to be here. Well, who are you to begin with? Come on in anyway. You called us because he called you. It's no coincidence or accident that you're here. You're not an accident. You know, the only ones that are hooting and hollering and agreeing with what I'm saying are the ones that are doing the deal. The rest of you that are pissed, pardon my language right now, it's because you're not doing the deal. And I'm grateful I offended you. And I ain't afraid of you. I ain't afraid of you. I wasn't afraid of you on the streets, and I ain't afraid of you in the kingdom. And quite frankly, don't get too close to me, because I won't even touch you. My words in the flesh could bring you to your knees. But why would you want to be that person? Think of what you were when you were called. Not many of you were wise by human standards. Not many were influential. Not many were noble birth. But God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame. You know what it was? A liquid took you down. A container of liquid took you down. A leaf that created cocaine, opiates, took you down. A slot machine of all things robbed you of your destiny. That's what time it was. That little rock took the place of 2 little babies for me. You better know who you were when you were called. Don't ever forget who you were. The only way, if you don't forget who you were, you'll learn how to be who you are. But don't pretend around me. I know who you were. He knows who you were when you called him. My daddy had to pay the $700 for me to get into a sober house at 35. Because I had nothing. That's who I was. And I'm grateful I had somebody to do that for me, so I didn't have to live on the streets. I can guarantee you that $700 he paid for me to get into that sober house 12 years ago is the best $700 he's ever spent in his life. So the question is, if I was wise and you were wise, why would I do foolish things? God just said, I chose the foolish things to shame the wise. I chose the weak things to shame the strong. Well, if I was strong, why would I let a leaf or a liquid take me out? Because you've been called. And if it hadn't have taken you out, you wouldn't have answered the call. God bless you.